Testing 1, 2, 3. Hi everyone, and welcome to another Woke Wednesday. This podcast was created to shed light on different societal issues which have been at the forefront of public discourse through one of the most divisive times in American history. More so, it was created with the intent of allowing those that have often been neglected, shunned, or misunderstood to have a chance to share their experiences and thoughts. I hope this dialogue encourages critical conversation and activism amongst all listeners, and I hope you'll tell all your friends about it and share it on your social platforms. So, y'all, I bought some new AirPods for Christmas because I wanted some, and I really wanted to use them to record my episodes, but I don't know how to hook them up to this system I use. I finally figured out the other day how to hook them up to my Mac altogether. So if anyone knows how I can hook my AirPods up to the app that I use to record these, please let me know, because I don't know and I'm not about to Google it. I'm not about to confuse myself. So yes, let me know. Y'all can message me, text me, whatever you want to do. Just tell me how to do this. But let's get into these current events. The Tennessee governor, Bill Haslam, recently granted clemency to Centoya Brown. If you don't know her story, Brown, who is now 31 years old, was handed a life sentence at the age of 16 for killing Johnny Allen after he paid her for sex. Her case resurfaced in the news after multiple celebrities like LeBron James, Rihanna, Kim Kardashian, and the Women's March all publicly supported and have taken legal action on her behalf. Leading up to the shooting, she was forced into prostitution by a man who she thought at the time was her boyfriend, but court documents would later show that he physically, sexually, and emotionally abused her, then made her go out and earn money for him in exchange for sex. While the prosecution argued that her motive behind the shooting was to rob the victim, her lawyers claimed self-defense, being that the victim showed her multiple firearms before getting into bed with her, and then reached for what she believed was another one that he was going to use her to kill her. Looking at this case, obviously it's devastating a life was lost, but it's equally important to look at the fact that this black woman who was sold at a young age into sex trafficking, and because of that now faces a life in prison while no one else is being held accountable for what she went through. Sex trafficking victims are all deserving to have equal opportunity for justice to be served to those that traffic them, no matter what the situation consists of. While obviously it's great she's receiving clemency, and honestly long overdue, we have to look at the broader picture, being that the system and men are continuously held unaccountable for injustices toward women in general, but more specifically women of color. Not only that, sex workers are often forgotten about as marginalized groups. Their constant rape, assault, beatings, emotional turmoil, and abuse they have to endure seem to fall by the wayside when they do come forward with these abuses. Instead, only their job is magnified, and often they're denied basic housing services, health care, and just treated like they're not even second-class citizens, but worse. Violating their basic human rights in any way, shape, or form only perpetuates the idea that we shouldn't believe women when they come forward with their stories.
The criminal justice system has a set of rights created to protect you. But do you think it's really protecting us? You had a right to remain silent, but that really means You had a right to be silenced, doubted, interrogated, suspected. The color of your skin can and will be used against you in a court of law. In their hands, we're incarcerated 5 times more often than white people convicted for the same crimes. You have a right to attorney during questioning. In some states, 80% of criminal defendants can't even afford an attorney. So an overworked public defender controls your fate. One government employee, countless lives at stake. You had a right to be innocent until proven guilty. But somehow, about 47% of the wrongly convicted are black. And if they do prove you're guilty, they're gonna write you a run-on sentence, on average 20% longer than white defendants accused of the same crime. Even if you get out, you're still not free. When you're ex-con, they had a right to deny you a bank account, deny you a mortgage, deny you a job, deny your vote. And if you don't remain perfect, with the smallest slip-up, smallest infraction, the most honest mistake, you're gonna join us, the 80% who come back to prison within 5 years, as I did. That's when you realize they didn't bring us here to thrive. They brought us here to build this. The plantation and the prison are actually no different. The past is the present. It ain't no coincidence. This was the plan since abolition, to keep us subjugated by creating this system. But I believe in a different set of rights. The right to stand up and be heard. The right to reform a broken justice system and build a new future. We had the right to be silent. Now it's our right to speak up. Do you understand these rights as I read them to you?
In some other optimistic news regarding criminal justice reform, Meek Mill, Jay-Z, the owner of the New England Patriots, Robert Kraft, and the owner of the Philadelphia 76ers have all come together to form a bipartisan organization aimed at advocating for major criminal justice reform. A big goal of theirs is to help release at least 1 million people in jail within the next 5 years. And they've pledged altogether $50 million towards this cause in order to make this initiative an actual reality. If you haven't already listened to the episode on the systemic implications of incarceration, I would highly, obviously I'm biased because I'm the one who talks about it. I would highly encourage you to do so because this issue disproportionately affects communities of color. And steps like Meek Mill and Jay-Z are taking have the potential not to close the gap altogether, but at least shrink it. And in other news regarding criminal justice reform, y'all know my best friend Bim. Well, he got in a Twitter argument a few weeks ago. Well, I guess it's been like a month now. He got in a Twitter argument with Van Jones, the CNN political commentator, because Van Jones basically said that Kim Kardashian is leading the charge for criminal justice reform. I'm not saying, obviously, the one woman she got out of jail was great. That lady did not deserve to be in jail for that length of time. I think that's great. But she is not leading anything for criminal justice reform. So I don't even know what Van Jones was talking about it. But anyways, it's really funny. I have the screenshots if you want them because y'all know I was dying. And I mean, I really don't care for the Kardashians because they steal from black culture. And their lipstick dries you out. It's not even that good. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. But that's just something that I thought was funny. And if you want to see the receipts, I have them. But lately, we've also witnessed an increase in the chaos and mayhem from the White House as the government went into what is now the longest government shutdown in history. Literally, it was closed for 35 days. The shutdown started on December 22nd because the Senate failed to provide funds in a spending bill for Trump's $5 billion border wall. Interestingly enough, if you followed his campaign, Trump repeatedly said that Mexico would pay for the wall. But now, the U.S. government had to shut down because of the very wall that we weren't even supposed to pay for. With that, This episode is going to focus on the financial implications of this government shutdown and just the pure insanity of it all. Because now that we have been living in this chaos for a little over a month now, I think it's important to look at while obviously the government is temporarily reopened for 3 weeks, which is a small win. Trump is still holding strong to the very racist idea of funding his $5 billion wall, although Speaker Pelosi is remaining adamant that she, along with Democrats and some Republicans, are not giving him any coins for it. Period.
I am very proud to announce today that we have reached a deal to end the shutdown and reopen the federal government. As everyone knows, I have a very powerful alternative, but I didn't want to use it at this time. Hopefully it will be unnecessary. I want to thank all of the incredible federal workers and their amazing families who have shown such extraordinary devotion in the face of this recent hardship. You are fantastic people. You are incredible patriots. Many of you have suffered far greater than anyone but your families would know or understand. And not only did you not complain, but in many cases you encouraged me to keep going because you care so much about our country and about its border security. Again, I thank you. All Americans, I thank you. You are very, very special people. I am so proud that you are citizens of our country. When I say make America great again, it could never be done without you. Great people. In a short while, I will sign a bill to open our government for 3 weeks until February 15th. I will make sure that all employees receive their back pay very quickly or as soon as possible. It'll happen fast. I am asking Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell to put this proposal on the floor immediately. After 36 days of spirited debate and dialogue, I have seen and heard from enough Democrats and Republicans that they are willing to put partisanship aside, I think, and put the security of the American people first. I do believe they're going to do that. They have said they are for complete border security, and they have finally and fully acknowledged that having barriers, fencing, or walls, or whatever you want to call it, will be an important part of the solution.
Like I mentioned earlier, if you followed Trump during his presidential campaign, and honestly it was hard not to, then you're obviously familiar with his continuous assertions that Mexico would pay for the wall and his desire to build it in order to strengthen border security and keep all of the rapists and criminals out of the U.S. Those are his words, not mine. Yet, after Mexico announced time and time again that they were not paying for anything, and I mean literally the former president of Mexico said via Twitter, "We are not paying for that fucking wall." We saw Trump diverting the attention to the wall by demanding Congress members and the American people to fund it instead. Before the government shutdown was implemented, Democrats offered a spending package that would maintain current funding for border security, and both parties offered a bipartisan solution that would give him $1.6 billion as a compromise. Even though I don't know where they're getting those coins from, but Trump said no to both of those plans. Weeks of failing to reach a solution ended in what is now known as the longest shutdown in government history. Also, if you don't know, building border walls traditionally don't work as a permanent fixture for border security. Look at the Israel-Palestine conflict, for example. Israelis claim that the walls they're building are to protect its citizens from the abuses they've been suffering from Palestinians, while Palestinians argue that constructing these barriers will only deepen their long-standing disputes and shrink the chance of coming to a peaceful resolution, which I totally agree. Also, if people want to cross the borders, they will more than likely find a way to do so, wall or not. These borders and the people at them that Trump is constantly demonizing do not reflect any of the sentiments of criminality or evilness that we always see the conservative media outlets accuse them to be. Donald Trump is just racist. The motives behind this wall is racist as hell too. Period. Don't let the fake news and misinformation that Trump continuously spews fool you. Looking at the shutdown even deeper, it left an estimate of 800,000 federal workers required to report for work, although they ultimately have ended up missing 2 paychecks, which for most people is a lot of money. There was actually a study done in 2016 that majority of Americans only have up to a $500 rain check for emergencies, and 2 paychecks for most federal workers are well above $500. It has also affected hundreds of thousands of government contractors and their parent companies that won't receive compensation for their work. Those that ended up being furloughed do have the option of filing unemployment, but will more than likely have to pay back their unemployment benefits if they get their back pay from the missed paychecks. Which is something I really don't understand, and I'm not about to act like I'm an expert on taxes and benefits and all of that, but I don't understand how the federal government can require you to pay back unemployment benefits under these circumstances specifically. If anyone can explain that to me or inform me, please do so, because that honestly just seems backwards. Not only that, the White House claims that those who didn't receive their money will see it in the coming days. But what does that mean? These people needed their money when it was supposed to come. Literal people, like actual humans, that had to and still have to go to food banks just to make sure they could eat that day. And there have been a multitude of stories of people detailing how they can no longer afford childcare, pay their rent, mortgages, and other simple necessities. And let's not forget about the workers that won't even receive back pay since they're not federal employees. One story that particularly struck me was one of a tax attorney that works directly with the IRS. And with it closed, he only reports to work now every other week, which cuts his salary in half. And he won't even get back any of the money that's rightfully his because technically he's not a federal employee. There have also been reports that if the shutdown were to continue into February, or if it happens again, because let's not forget, he temporarily agreed to reopen it, food stamps for 38 million low-income Americans would be drastically reduced, and around $140 billion in tax returns could be frozen and delayed. That is truly insane to me, because the lowest of the low are already fighting continuously every day just to provide basic necessities for them and their families, and that could be cut in half if the government does shut down again. As snarky as this may sound, when Nancy Pelosi commented that I guess the president thinks that people can just call their dad for money, I definitely think that spoke to the ignorance and privileged life that this man sits in on a daily basis. He's not only out of touch with reality altogether, but he's also so out of touch with the everyday financial struggles that people go through. Take it from someone who knows, i.e. me, growing up poor can strain someone's emotional well-being in ways that others could not even imagine. If you don't know, I grew up in a very low-income household, being that my mom was a single parent and had to take care of myself along with my 3 other siblings with little to no help from my father. So, as someone who continuously had to worry about where money would come from for basic necessities like food and our bills, it is so insulting that a man who has literally never had to live that type of life could sit there and act like people who do should just sit there and take it and be fine and make adjustments like he literally said. It's not that easy. It's actually extremely difficult. Not to mention, while I cannot speak for anyone financially affected by this particular shutdown, I can say that it just adds insult to injury to see those at the top like Wilbur Ross, who asks, why can't people just take out loans instead of using food banks? Or again, Trump himself saying that people need to adjust. Making light of, for most, life or death situations that have been brought on purely by the racist, xenophobic agenda of Donald Trump. Because that is truly what the entirety of this wall and the motive behind it is. It's racist, it's xenophobic, and it's just pure discrimination on the basis that he hates, specifically in this instance, brown people. We continuously see just how tone deaf those in this administration can be, and it honestly doesn't surprise me the lack of empathy displayed with these comments. But I will say this. In the midst of all of this craziness and mayhem, it's refreshing to see those with empathy and the means to help actually help people. PayPal CEO set up a $25 million fund that provides up to a $500 interest-free cash advance to those that apply with no interest. He promises that the funds will remain open and functional until the federal government reopens and those affected receive their first paycheck. I mean, snaps to him. He has the means and the ability to give back to the community he serves, and he's doing so. USAA partnered with the Coast Guard Mutual Assistance and the Red Cross to provide Coast Guard members with $1,000 loans, and a multitude of locally owned restaurants are providing free or heavily discounted meals to federal employees. Lastly, several movie theaters are offering free movies as a way to de-stress for workers. And I love movies, so I think that's just great. Of course, these measures cannot completely fill the hole financially and mentally this shutdown has left people in, but it does shrink it in some ways and goes to show that goodness and service is still very existent in people, as it should be. I hope that this episode was informative and thought-provoking for all that listen and for those that will listen in the future. I hope that we continually extend empathy and compassion for those around us. Despite the turmoil this administration has inflicted upon others, we can only actively work against the systems set in place that destroy everyday lives by our service, our voting, and unlearning the biases that often perpetuate these systems. It's not enough to just talk about doing these things. We have to actually do them. Remember, all of these opinions are my own, but they should be everyone else's. Have a woke Wednesday. Thank you for another Woke Wednesday. Transcripts of entire episodes will be available on the Woke Wednesday website. Episodes are written and produced by Hannah Mason and Trey Leonard of Lenico Entertainment. Episodes are hosted by Hannah Mason and edited by Trey Leonard. All graphics are designed by Anna French.